Welcome to this week's episode. It is my honor to be your host, Dr. Katie Williams, with Dr. Williams LLC and the Dr. Williams podcast. If you want to keep this show up and running, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating and a review, and share it with somebody that you think would enjoy listening. This show is about highlighting what I consider to be the most valuable form of communication. And it's something we all have, whether we're tapped into it or not. That is, intuition. Let's jump right in and see how today's guest utilizes their unique ability to tap into their intuition and how they use it to serve others. Make sure to listen to the end to find out how you can work with today's guest. Hey guys, I'm so stoked to be here with you today because my really good friend Ishil is here. And Ishil is somebody that you might be familiar with if you've been listening to Feel Good Now, the Dr. Williams podcast, because I had a soul purpose alignment session with Ishil way back. We met online. I was offering some free stuff through the podcast, and she was the only one that reached out. And now we have this wonderful friendship. And she actually is the one that gave me the idea for this podcast to be the fly on the wall for these readings. And I was like, Ishil, we've got to do it again to share it with the audience and let them know the beauty of what you do. So Ishil's here today. Thank you for being on the show. I am always so happy anytime I'm with you.
Thank you, Katie. It's great to be here, and it's great to be in your presence and on your show. And this is a kind of a new experience for me too, because usually the sessions I do are kind of done in the privacy of, either my office or my healing space in my home. And so thank you for opening yourself up to receiving this clearing today and everything else that comes up that which we'll discuss. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, could you just give everybody kind of a little bit of background for you? Maybe talk about your business and what kind of clearing and reading you're going to be doing for me today.
Yes, absolutely. I guess, since I was very young, I have always had the inclinations of just wanting to be of service and wanting to help others, be it humans, animals, just, um, a very sort of natural, inbuilt desire. And over time, through different teachings and trainings, I have come to create this healing modality, which I do now primarily, which is called soul purpose alignment, and it is done simply by creating the intention to connect with each person that I will be working with, their higher self, because we're all made of energy and we can make that connection instantly, as you and I know this really well, and just basically pushing the conscious mind aside and working directly with that higher wisdom, the subconscious self or higher self, as we refer to, and just basically trying to figure out whatever blocks, whatever discord energies, patterns, beliefs, programming that might be there that is preventing, your achieving your highest and best. Um, and I never know when I connect, with each person. I never know what's going to come up. It's just sort of like, okay, let's connect and let's see. And so your higher self is always the driver. And I'm just, I guess, serving in the capacity of a messenger in that case. And just sort of bringing to you the messages coming directly from your higher self. And then conveying to you what needs to be cleared, what you need to pay attention to. And then once we diagnose all those things together, which is basically us just talking and, bringing through the information, then we do a clearing, which is like a very sacred space, very sort of intimate in a way, because it's just you, your guides, and myself in the space trying to facilitate that. And then, which feels like a meditation, I guess, that might
It did feel that way
last.
to me.
Yeah. And when there is like an in office session taking place, usually because the person has to get up and go back to their place, to their home, the clearing can be anywhere from 10 minutes to maybe like 20 minutes max. But when I'm doing my online sessions, which gives the client the luxury of having their own space and being in their own space, you can just lay down and take it all in, and it is quite natural for the person to fall asleep. And an hour later, you wake up, the clearing is complete, but it's like I no longer have to be in this space. I just quietly disconnect, knowing that the clearing has happened and we've done what we needed to do. So, yeah, so that's sort of the process that I do through this work, as well as also I'm a Reiki, Usu Reiki master and teacher. So I do attunements and I teach Reiki as well. So,
Wonderful.
yeah,
I
thank you.
do. I remember I have my notes from our first session, but I remember I had to take a nap that day because
Yeah,
I was worn out after the clearing. And you had told me that, you might have some feelings, you might feel some fatigue and stuff. And it really did affect me. Do you remember I called you the next day and I thought,
yes, I
something's
remember.
wrong? Like, what's going on with me? I feel so different. And that it can last for several days.
That is expected. And the way that I explain that is, imagine living with all those, you know, patterns that are kind of hiding in the background, in the subconscious. So then, in some ways, I liken the clearing that we do, or even the diagnosing part, to opening up the Pandora's box and
Yeah.
just like digging in there and bringing up all the raw emotions, traumas sometimes, right? That might come
Yes.
up. um, I mean, that's energetically, it takes a lot, of energy, and that explains the reason why one might feel a little bit tired, and it continues for the next few days, until you kind of have the ability to process it, and everything is kind of back to normal.
So do you think I'll experience something similar this time, or because we've already done a session, it'll be to a lesser degree?
Like I said, I never can predict how it's
Okay.
gonna go, because like I just connect and it's like, okay, let's see what shows up and what happens. But I mean, so sometimes, there's this thing that's called healing crisis may happen. For some people, for some reason, that's almost always part of the process, they are doing. And sometimes it's like there's nothing. It's just a very easy, quick, no effect type of thing. And sometimes the session, like one session might be that you didn't have a healing crisis, and then the next one, because maybe it was a deeper issue, or maybe I don't know,
Okay.
it may have an effect on you. So it's kind of like, that's why at the end of each clearing and session, I like explaining all these things in case any of them happens, and so therefore you are informed and you're
Yes.
not panicking and going, what's going on? I thought,
Right.
we cleared all this stuff.
Well,
So
and I don't
mhm.
wanna scare anybody who's listening. It's not like it's super
Yeah.
bad or anything. I actually found it to be really comforting because I thought,
Hmm.
"Wow, this is really doing something." It was really kind of
Yeah.
validating that something was changing within me, and I liked that.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
started seeing the benefits of it, which just further had me
Yeah.
invested in what you're doing and the quality of it. So I
Yeah.
just want to make sure
Thank you.
everybody understands that this
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
something to be feared. It's a natural thing that happens, and it's kind of like digging out the wound, or it's like uncovering a wound. And
Yes.
then as it heals, it might be a little uncomfortable, but then you're like on the other side of it, like, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And the shift is almost always imminent. It's like the minute you start to unearth all those things that were hiding in the subconscious. And the minutes the spotlight goes on all those things, and again, it's kind of like you are, or your higher wisdom is sitting in the driver's seat. So there's never anything that is given to you or comes up that is something you can't handle, or
Mhm.
it's because you're ready
Yes.
to hear it about it, you're ready to do something about it, you're ready to clear it. And often, because you are your higher self, it's not a separate entity. um, you will most likely come into the healing space with awareness around those issues, and it's like, oh, I wish I could shift those and
Yes.
change those things. So yeah, it's like, be careful what you wish for. and,
But know that you're
and
ready
your
for
higher
it
self
if it's coming
delivers.
up.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
also really comforting to know that your higher
Yeah.
self has your highest intention for goodness,
Yes.
and you can trust
Best
that.
interest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your best interest,
absolutely.
exactly. I also wanted to point out that this is something you tune into before we even meet. Before you meet with anybody, you
Mm-hmm.
tune in and you receive information. So when I first met you, you had this whole list of notes already
Yeah.
written. I mean, you knew
Yeah.
things about me that you couldn't have known because we had
Uh,
never spoken about any of it. And
it's true.
and
Yeah.
that was also really validating to know, like, wow, you really know me. And so I'm excited to see what you got this time.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's because we're all, again, we know each other, right? We all know each other energetically on that soul level. There are no barriers. It's just, and it's amazing how powerful the power of intention is, when you want to do that. But of course, it has to be done with consent. So I can't just go around and spying in on you or something, right, to
Right.
find out what's going on. But it's because you expressed, okay, like, we're gonna meet up and we're gonna do this. So I am really grateful to be able to do this sort of preliminary groundwork, so that instead of having to open up my charts and figure things out, I can be more present with you,
Mhm.
and I can, and then it gives us more time to kind of talk back and forth, as opposed to, like, back in the day when I was doing it in the beginning. It was very time consuming because it's like I'm finding it out as we go along. And so
Right.
sometimes the sessions would go, like, God, as long as 2.5 hours or so,
Wow.
like maybe even 3 hours sometimes. So now I'm finding it works better for me and for the person, I'm working with, so that we can be in that space, and more present, and being here now and just talking, and then doing the clearing at the end,
Okay.
within an hour, maybe hour 15 sometimes,
Yeah.
that sort of time.
Okay,
Hmm.
well, I think we should get right into it. After we're
Yes.
done with the session, we will tell you how you can reach out to Ishil and get in touch with her if you're interested in having your own soul purpose alignment session. So stay tuned for
Thank
that.
you, Katie. All right. Okay, so today, as I have asked to connect with your higher self, it appears that right off the bat, what is has come through is this request for us to address all space time and dimensions everywhere, meaning all timelines and lifetimes. So, when this comes up, I know that it is um, this massive cleanup process, that is happening on a soul journey, not just like, oh, we'll just go back 2 weeks prior or back to when you were 5 years old.
Mm.
This is major spring cleaning, kind of thing. So, and also, though, there was a mentioning of a timeline where um, suggesting 3 years prior to today, that,
Okay.
as maybe uh, as something that's happened that kick-started and jump-started all this, the blocks and the frequencies to come through. So, but right away, with neon lights, what I've seen when I connected was that you are finally ready to let go and release all traumas related to grief.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
yes, and you know, and bringing joy as a gift, new awareness, new strength coming into your space, and kind of embodying that, you know, as opposed to kind of this low grade grief that's there. So I don't know if it's something that, like, sometimes when this clearing is about to happen, you may already have noticed feeling that emotion or energy coming up on surface, something that you hear or you see or you watch, like it may trigger, you know, that old emotion. Sometimes it might pop up in dream times.
Mhm.
So I have no idea what this means for you, and there's that timeline of 3 years. um, and and I also want to say, like, you know how in grief, when we go through grief, um, there are different stages of it, and then there's the part where also we may have sort of like these questions or regrets or feeling a certain way about ourselves, like should have, could have, like, you know, all that is kind of coming up for you at this point in time, it looks like, to be cleared. And even if you can't connect with this or can't understand what this may mean at this point in time, I want you to take comfort in knowing that it is something that is happening to clear basically everything that you've collected as a soul, where you felt this grief deep in your being, um, and that you are going to be free of it.
Hmm.
So, what do you make of this when you hear
Yeah,
this?
I was trying to think about it. 3 years ago today was the day after my oldest son's fourth birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't bring anything up for me, but I started thinking, what year was that? And that was 2020. And there was a lot going on at this time in May
Yeah.
or June 1st of 2020, right? Because the pandemic was going on. So nothing is coming to me really specific around that time, but I do know that that
Mm-hmm.
was a really stressful time for a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay.
nobody in my life like passed or anything that I
Yeah.
can think of as far as grief is concerned.
Yeah. And this may also maybe refer to the times where you went through grief and whatever kind of you were not able to process fully and let go of. So, like, knowing grief process and going through it, whether it's through losing someone we love or letting go of something, you know, that was important. It's like all those things that kind of stuck to you that is actually preventing you from creating this like really brand new, joyful, clean sort of space for that existence where, you know, nothing is pulling you down. So, so one of the first things that I'm looking at here is a discord energy or pattern, self punishment
Mm,
related. And so this is the part where, you know, it's like that, maybe blaming ourselves, maybe thinking we could have been handling things differently, or whatever that might be. The self punishment, which is held in the lungs, which, you know, lungs are known to hold on to grief and sadness, and, you know, so I don't know um, if that's ever been, you know, something that's come up that you've had to deal with, like the lungs.
yeah.
Again, like all the old energies that you've held onto, you are, for whatever reason, it's like, let's get rid of grief and let's bring in more joy, and let's get rid of all these like discord energies and beliefs and patterns and blocks that are kind of holding you in this like low frequency, and your view of yourself, you know, where you could be kind of moving into that more of accepting self, loving self,
Hmm.
knowing self, you know. So
So would that show
Um,
up as some kind of respiratory kind of illness?
yeah.
Okay, I did have a really, really bad illness around that time.
Okay.
It might have been several months before now, but it hung
Mm-hmm.
on. It
Mm-hmm.
probably was COVID, but we weren't testing for it yet, so I
Right.
didn't know
Right.
that. But, I was in bed, and John had to take care of the boys, and, like, I couldn't function, and it was
Okay.
in my lungs big time.
Okay. Yeah. And it could even be, the soul, if you're trying to clear this grief from your lungs in all timelines and lifetimes, perhaps 3 years ago was this like the trigger, where it's kind of gotten, okay, like it's time, let's begin the process. And maybe that's kind of where it started and you felt that.
Okay.
So as we talk about like these emotions and energies come up, I'm curious as to how close these feel to you, whether you feel resonant with these things that are like, are they familiar to you, as a feeling, as an emotion, this thing about self-punishment, and then lack of
Yes.
self-forgiveness, which follows that, of course, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we're always, I think most people are hardest on ourselves, right? I mean, we can be so compassionate and loving about everybody else, but
Right.
when it comes to loving and accepting ourselves unconditionally, that proves to be a little bit challenging. So lack of self-forgiveness, when I asked like which organ, where in the body you're carrying this, and everything else that's come up after that, is heart. So heart is holding on to stuff. So today is like a really big clearing for you, letting go of a lot in that region, which means it means great. It means opening your heart to life and to say yes to life and love and
Oh,
all those, and love for self, more importantly,
yes.
again.
To
Yeah.
speak to that a little bit,
Yeah.
I do resonate with that. I was very self-sacrificing, and this is something I've been working on because I would deprive myself of things that I wanted, and I know that that was a mindset that I had, and I was really hard on myself. Like, if I was cleaning the kitchen, I'd be like,
Hmm.
I have to do it this way. This is the right way to do it. And I would never let myself off the hook. I couldn't cut corners or just save
Right.
it for later. I was really hard on myself. And you're
Yeah.
right about all of that. And I've gotten more aware of it, and I've been turning that around. So I
Good.
to give you an example, when I cook dinner, I don't take bites of anything. I'm like, "No, I'm making the dinner, then I will sit down and I'll eat it." So John will come in,
Right.
"What are you making?" And he starts picking, and I'm like, "Hey, you don't get to do it if I don't do it." But
Right.
now I'm
Right.
like, "Well, why don't I do it? Give myself a little taste of it. What's the big deal?" Let yourself enjoy it. So that's kind of yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, so thank you. So another one, a kind of a big energy pattern I'm seeing here is depression. So that's also held in the heart region. I have to speak about this a little bit sometimes. So I had seen this like sticker once which said, I listen to all the little voices in my head. and and this work, when I do it, it's a little bit like that. It's like, okay, I'm receiving all this information and writing it down, and then there's this like little voice, suggesting things like, oh, maybe this. So I learned over time to honor that, and instead of kind of like you, like, oh, I'm not gonna go
Yeah,
there, and why am I? but
trust it.
but I exactly trust it and go with it. And also I found out that if I actually withheld that information, sometimes, you know I may not allow the person I'm working with the ability to have a breakthrough. Like, it may
Oh,
be that important, the information. And sometimes it's nothing, and then you just kind of go, okay, well, I tried, and maybe it's just not that. But as I was tuning in to this grief and this sort of like depression, um, it made me think of, like, in this current body lifetime, I'm not talking about the soul's journey back in those other timelines. I wondered if you've ever had the experience of, like, um, maybe like miscarriage, or like, just sort of something that made you feel, the grief, but also feeling that maybe somehow you could have been better or done better. I don't know, however that would have been, but it's like something happened that you took on, perhaps.
I've
I
if
wonder.
I have ever miscarried, I don't know about it. So it's not that. Gosh, that's really hard to know. Um, I feel like I've lived 2 separate lives. I had a very I don't wanna say it was a difficult childhood. But it was a little difficult. My parents were divorced, and I went and did the back and forth thing. I had some sexual trauma, and I was really hard on myself as far as being good at school or being accepted, being liked, that kind of thing. And then as I got into my teenage years, I did some drugs, and I kind of fell into that kind of depression. I was doing some cutting for a while. So I did have a set period of time where I felt kind of dark, and I don't even remember what brought me out of it, but I definitely feel separated from that now. And I don't know what triggered it or anything. Like, nothing's really coming up as far as my grandmother dying was probably the biggest thing in my life that was grief related. And that happened, actually, we talked
Hmm.
about that in our first session around
Yes,
the age
yeah,
of 12.
yeah.
So,
And another thing that I want to touch on is, um, the recently, or not recently, for a while now, like, there's a lot of movement going on in the solar, systems, and solar flares and storms that are happening every day, which is actually bringing up a lot of, like, old, deeply held trauma and energies from people, all to, of course, help us to achieve our highest and best,
mhm.
kind of like healing our DNA and shifting our DNA, and for us to kind of achieve that higher consciousness. Definitely, they're playing a part. So,
Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Ishil, and I am the creator and a practitioner of a unique healing modality called Soul Purpose Alignment. I work with many wonderful souls all over the planet, including humans of all ages and animals. My work allows you and your loved ones to receive direct guidance from your higher self and your guides, where I serve as an intuitive messenger and help put the puzzle pieces together. We identify long-standing beliefs, traumas, blocks which get in the way of your highest and best self, and then we clear them with the assistance of your higher self and your guides. If you'd like to find out more about my work, please visit my website at www.ishil, where you can directly message me for questions or to book your session. I look forward to connecting and working with you. Many blessings to you and yours. Thank you.
sometimes there's no rhyme or reason, even, right? It could be that it's time. It's time for your soul to drop the dead weight. Like, you don't need any of this stuff anymore. And we do work around these things, right? Like, with conscious mind, after you realize, like, oh, this thing is really depressing, it's pulling me down, I don't want it anymore, like, you can do work on yourself that has helped, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But then there is always a certain percentage that we are not able to access, because things are in the subconscious, things are held
Yeah.
in the subconscious. So, even if it is just 1-2% of that grief that you were not able to get rid of on your own, your higher self is saying, okay, we got to get rid of all of it, so that there are all these wonderful things coming
I
for
will
you.
also speak to, and I told you about my ayahuasca experience, and the
Hmm.
shaman had told me that part of my purging in that experience was to get rid of ancestral baggage, which I feel had
Mm.
to do with grief because I had another reading where this also came up, that there was a
Oh,
lot of,
okay.
yeah, there is a tie through these things. This has been coming up. I don't fully understand it, but it has been kind of showing itself to me.
Yes. And how wonderful that you've taken that on. And there's always one brave soul in every family that says, this ends with me. I'm going to take care of this. And even if the ones before you have already moved on to spirit realm, you by taking this on and shifting that energy and clearing that ancestral, sort of wounds, I guess, it's huge. So kudos to
Well,
you for
thanks.
doing that. And often those plant ceremonies and the medicine in that is, of course, it can really trigger that and jumpstart that process. So
Sure.
that's wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. So so depression, lack of self-forgiveness, self-punishment, and trauma of grief, like these are sort of the big things that you're ready to clear, finally. And also, um, I am actually seeing that a couple of things are again like one came up. So blocks to joy is held in your lungs again.
Okay.
So, like, to be able to know and embrace like real sense of joy, you know, for whatever reason, if your soul um, felt really joyful at some point in time, but then something happened which it taught you to not go there again because it wasn't safe.
Oh,
Now it's finally coming back again. Like it could be sometimes as simple as, I always give this example, as a kid, you may feel joy and you're like singing out loud, at the top of your lungs. And it could be a very innocent thing. Your mom, your dad, your sibling might say, "Oh my God, I have a headache. I can't take it. Please don't stop," right?
yes. Yes.
And in that moment you may take that as, it was not safe for me to express myself in that way, so then you
Yes.
shut down. And then years later you may look around, people are laughing, having a good time, having the joyful existence, and you're like, why can't I have that? Why can't I feel that? And it could go back to something as simple as that.
I had
you
that
know
experience. I
yeah. Oh,
yes.
you do?
Yeah.
Like singing?
No, not singing. But what
Yeah.
happened when you were talking about it, I was like, okay, I had that feeling of when I was expressing myself, then all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't. What happened was we lived in, this was a long time ago. I was probably 9, 10, right in that age range. And we were playing with the home video camera, the camcorder. And my mom had it and I was living it up, like playing it up to the camera, right? Really being funny and stuff. And she goes, "You're such a ham." And in that moment, I felt like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be like that." And then I think that I carried that for a long time. She didn't mean anything negative
Of
by it, but
course. Yeah. Yeah.
it just struck me as, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be responding to the camera in that way." And I was always a little bit shy after that and didn't really want to perform. So coming into this with the podcast and really putting myself out there was me kind of embracing that negativity that was associated with it and overcoming it. So that's
Good
what
for
came to
you.
my
Yeah.
mind when you were talking about that.
Yes, exactly. And also, it's often is the energy we respond to, right? Even as little kids. I mean, it's like you look at the little kid, like 2 years old or a year old or a little baby. I mean, they are still picking up on the energy, not necessarily the words. So it was behind the energy that felt perhaps a little bit judgmental that you picked up on, and you were like, it's not safe for me to go there.
Yeah.
So it's so crazy, isn't it, when you think about it this way? And I have so many clients who are, bless them. I mean, they are great parents, moms and dads, and yet they're terrified when they hear something like this. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a huge responsibility. Like I have to be conscious of, everything that I'm saying, thinking, the energy behind it.
We couldn't
But
possibly.
and we couldn't. And another thing that then I have to remind them is like, listen, your child came here uh, with like certain wiring and certain need for
Intentions.
certain lessons
Hmm.
and to master, and chose you. So it is like you have to trust the process, and you can't be holding yourself responsible for everything. It's like they are just as divine as your soul is. Even though they're in these tiny little bodies, doesn't mean they are any less wise or capable than you,
Yeah,
right?
I believe that we have soul contracts that we make with people. And sometimes that means providing a negative experience for somebody so that they have the opportunity to grow. And
Yeah.
that could be one of those times where it was very slight, right? It was a very
Hmm.
slight thing she said. I don't think she meant it as a negative thing.
No.
She loves me. So, I know my
Yes.
mom loves me. But
Of
it
course.
did provide me the opportunity to come into my shell and then realize I didn't like being in my shell and come back out of it again.
Yeah, exactly. Because soul always knows the journey, and you shape it up, and you're like, okay, this is the map, and I'm gonna do this. When I reach a certain age, that's when I'm gonna call my soul back in. If you've left due to trauma or whatever. I mean, it's everything has you have this roadmap, and it's amazing, the process. So blocks the joy, blocks the self love, which is like, it's like we are all, I think, trying to master that,
Yeah,
right? It's
right.
it's and this one is held in the liver
Mm.
digestive system for you. So and liver is usually where we stuff like disappointments and resentment, anger, jealousy, like those sort of things are usually held in the liver. So if those are things that you hold about yourself, of course, the liver would be affected by it.
I'm
And
super jealous
blocks
of the
to
body I used to have. I have to admit.
ah
Like I'm not a jealous person, but I am jealous of that.
join the club, yeah. Definitely.
Uh,
And this is the other thing too, like to be able to love ourselves in all seasons and all aspects of ourselves, even like when the shadow side shows up. I mean, it's an art. It's really, and I find that it is not that easy. Like for most people it's not easy, but it seems the type that are more aware and healer type and wanting to help others, like it's the hardest for those kind of people, right, to go in and just go, oh, I love you, you're
yeah.
amazing, and to be able to say that with just as ease we can do that with others. That's definitely this sort of ongoing kind of challenge and lesson, but we're getting there one
Yeah.
day at a time.
That's
Right?
right.
Yeah, yeah. So as a result of the clearing, then you are prepared to bring more joy, more self-love, more happiness, um, as well as healing from the grief, self-forgiveness, and by getting rid of those like kind of low frequency, heavy energies of depression. So just ultimately liberation and
Mm.
freedom and giving your soul wings.
Ooh,
So
that
I
sounds
like I
wonderful.
like this. Yes. And so this is sort of like finding out what is needed for the tune up you're doing today, right? So this is kind of on paper here, which if I'm working online with anybody, um, after this is done, I send the written notes to them so that they can have the reference, and then sometimes. Depending on where they're at, how they want to do it, there is like support system that shows up, which is suggested again by the higher self. So then those links and suggestions are also sent, which I will send to you
Okay.
after we're done. So
So that's like
um,
last time you said there was a crystal and then there was an essence.
yes, so it's always different though. Like this
Okay.
time, actually, there's you like crystals. There's another one here, and then a flower essence remedy and a sound frequency, which is kind of usually what comes up. But then again, I have this chart that has like endless options, and wherever the soul is, and wherever your higher self decides this is what we need. It's never me thinking, oh, this would be good for Katie.
Yeah,
Let me write that down.
right.
It's always
It's what Katie thinks
your
is good for Katie.
exactly. So then we follow that. The house rules are, very dictating that's what we do exactly. So before we jump onto the support system, however, there are these protocols that I also implement into the clearing, which is basically asking your, again, higher self in the presence of your guides, your angels, your ancestors, Father, Mother, God, universe. What sort of things are also needed to implement into your system and introduce to your system so that it can supplement, the clearing of all these other energies. So there were 7 things that came up that we're also going to do. Just add, I say add to the shopping cart. So we're just gonna check out in the end with all of them. But the first one is joy, zest, life force energy activation and optimization. So this is definitely very fitting. Deep cleansing and deep healing activation and optimization. Full presence resolution. So that's a good one. Relief and release optimization. Full trust and faith optimization. Grief recovery resolution. And traumatic stress resolution. So these are kind of like the bonus, um, goodies that are going to be there supporting you as well.
Awesome.
Um, so I don't have it right. Like, actually, I call it Professor Google. You can always go on Google and ask Google, but gold beryl is the crystal that came up for you this
Oh,
time.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, and apparently it's really good for you. And I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to look at like what that's for. But when you do go and ask for the healing properties of gold beryl, it will give you the answer. I'm sure you're going to see why as we clear this, here today. And for you to like get a piece to wear or carry it with you, it's recommended that you have that piece, gold beryl.
Okay.
Um, and then also there's a flower essence remedy, which I'm going to. I asked your higher self if you would benefit from the physical, like actually taking drops. These are like homeopathic natural
Yes,
remedies
that's what I did
with
last time.
plants. Yes. So, but this time, it is just we're gonna do it energetically. That's what your higher self asked for. So when that happens, just like the power of prayer, we just create the intention like this particular remedy is going to be merging with you every day. 7 drops you will be given once a day for the next 2 weeks, and you're going to notice the shift that it brings you. And that is nature spirit's heart remedy.
Oh,
And hearts, it's like opening the heart again, healing the heart, mending the heart. Heart balm, like it actually serves as that. So that's coming in, and it will be this ongoing support for the next 2 weeks, which tells me that's probably how long you will need to process, all
okay.
these things we
Yeah.
talked about. Because I always ask, like, okay, as you are geared to clear all this, how much you're willing to clear right away, of all
Hmm.
these things we talked about. And when I checked, it was 97%,
Oh,
out of
wow.
100. So it's like, you're there.
I'm there.
um, yeah, but the remaining 3%, because the house rule is that it's never a shock to the system when we do this clearing, that it happens gently and slowly, and always following the higher self's advice. So if she says, I need 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, we just have to go with that.
So what you're saying is 97% will be cleared right out the gate when you do the clearing.
Hmm.
The other 3% will
Yes.
be done over the next 2 weeks.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
Exactly. And so that, and also others who are listening, with this work, um, it's kind of different than typical, therapy, like, oh, I'll see you again next week, the same time, we'll continue. Your higher self is the driving force behind it. So if she's like, I need 3 weeks, we can't go in there to try to dig more, before she's kind of completed the process. And we always have to honor that. So, and when you have reached a place where you are fully like peaceful and integrated everything and healed up, um, it's funny because that business model would work better for my business, I guess, if I had everyone coming back every week. But
Right.
I love that sometimes, like, I won't see my clients for a month or 2 months or so. That means
Yeah.
like they're doing well,
Yes.
until another layer comes up that they feel they need to get in touch and they need to get rid of that layer, and that's when we do the clearing. So to me, that's like, okay, we're doing good, we're doing a good job here. That
That's like
is,
how I go to the chiropractor. When I start
mhm.
hurting, I go to the chiropractor.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
like a
exactly.
regular kind of appointment kind of thing, just
Right,
when it
right.
comes up.
And some, it depends on how you wish to do it too. Some people want to do like the regular tune-up kind of thing, like I want to be on it. And some, like, you said, you just feel something up, and literally something comes up on the surface, and you start kind of feeling a little bit off, and then you're like, okay, maybe we need to do some more work and
Interesting.
peeling the onion.
I'm glad that you explained it in that way because I was really curious because it's been several
Hmm.
months since the
Yeah,
first time.
yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Just
yeah,
interesting how that
yeah.
works.
Yes. So, so the heart remedy will be administered to you energetically, and then I am working with these sound frequencies called cymatics, and so they are basically sound frequencies that are kind of playing back to you the perfect resonance of the body and the each cell, and then the emotions. So kind of like saying, having a mirror effect. See, your this is your perfect state, and so let's like change that ongoing old programming, and write overwrite that old program, and then just create a new one. So the cymatic sound frequencies, sometimes will come up. Sometimes it's solfeggio sound frequencies, so they're different. But for you, it was sacral chakra support, which is where we hold emotions, kind of like that vulnerability. And I mean, it's so fitting with what you are clearing. And again, I'm always in awe of the wisdom of the higher self, because I could not put this recipe like all together for you in the perfect sense, and so I will send you that sound frequency,
Okay.
um, for you to listen to every day, once, 10 minutes every day, like also for the next two
Okay.
weeks. And that should take care of all of this we talked about. And then, you just little by little start to feel lighter, and less triggered, perhaps, or all these emotions we talked about, kind of starts to dissipate, and you start to find that it's easier to connect with joy
Yes.
and
Ooh, I'm
happiness,
looking
and
forward to that.
yeah, yeah, it's coming. I mean, it's already 97%. That's
That
amazing.
is amazing.
You're already there.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
after the clearing, I might jump for joy.
Yes. Yes. So about the clearing, if you are in my space, in my healing space, like physically here, or it's just you and I, we would be doing this together, like online, But it's just, I feel that because it's like such a concentrated and sacred space that's created with intention to only hold the two of
Yes.
us and then your guides. I feel like the guidance I'm getting is that I need to do that after we finish the
Sure.
interview. So I'm gonna go into that quiet space, and I'm gonna connect with your higher self, and I'm gonna finish the rest,
So just to
and
clarify
send
for
you
everybody
the.
listening, if this was just a regular
Yes,
session between me and you would be doing that right now
yes,
in the
yeah,
moment. But
and
since it's
I
for the
exactly.
podcast, we're gonna do it
Yes,
after the recording because a lot of other energies come with other people listening.
exactly, exactly. So then it kind of becomes this huge space, right? Everyone, so it can get all mixed up, and I just want to make sure that we just have like
Yes.
direct connection in that, and yeah. So this would be when I would ask you, do you need to go to the bathroom before we
Yes, I
start?
remember
And
that.
then you can just lay down. Yeah, you can just lay down and receive the energy. Everybody experiences it differently. It's really kind of just like laying down, and in my office too, right? Laying down on the couch and just kind of checking out a little bit in that 10-minute time as I'm talking in the background, and basically addressing all these energies and calling in your guides and ancestors, and ultimately, I guess, like a peaceful feeling, right?
Yes.
That's kind of what you felt
Yes, it was.
until you hear the bells
Yes.
that brings you back. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So,
I look forward to doing the clearing when we get finished here. But first, I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you in case they want to have their own soul purpose alignment session. So, how can they do that?
yes. So I have a website, and that's the best way to get a hold of me, www.ishil.com. So ishil.com. And that's the best way I find that anyone who's interested, they can get a hold of me. I also have an Instagram account, Soul Purpose Alignment, all one word, that I try to keep in touch, with my tribe, and trying to inspire, and to be inspired. And so
And
yeah,
you have an
those would
email
be.
list, right?
I do, yes,
Like you
I
send
do.
out.
But I usually, yeah, exactly. So if anyone contacts me through my website, I do then add them to my list, and then I can keep sending out, sometimes like promotions and newsletters and things that are happening that I'm aware of that, maybe I should put out there and to inspire and to support.
I love
So,
getting your emails.
yeah,
They're always so heartfelt and
thank you.
genuine, and I just feel you in reading them. Or that one time you sent the
That's so
audio version,
awesome.
and I love it. It's not like
Yeah,
you're
thank you.
bombarded with emails like with some people, It's when you
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
the inspiration, so it's really potent
Yes.
when you get an email
Yeah.
from Ishel. You're
Thank
like, "No,
you.
really,
Thank you for
I
saying
really
that.
feel that way." Yeah,
Yeah,
it's quality.
because I feel the collective energy, I mean, we're all going through it. And, some days, if you're not aware we're all going through it, it may feel really lonely and scary,
Right.
right? Sometimes with the energies kind of being really intense out there, and with the solar flares. So yeah, it's just if I again listening to all the little voices in
Yeah.
my head, if there's the push there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and say something about this, or I want to share something. So yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
I like hearing that it's appreciated.
It is very much. I appreciate you so much. And you're very special to me. I'm so pleased that we met and that we've been able to continue collaborating together and sharing each other. And I just want to thank you for this. I'm just very grateful. And now we're going to go and we're going to record an interview, which we're going to put on the other podcast. So if you're listening to this one, you can head over to that one and listen to the interview with Ishel. Thanks for being here today. This was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you so much for having me. I love being here with you, always.
That concludes today's episode. It is my hope that you found benefit in listening to today's guest and gained a greater appreciation for the guidance of intuition in each of us. If you haven't already, please make sure to follow us on social media under Dr. Williams Podcast. Look within, trust your intuition, and allow yourself to explore all the splendor that it has to offer. This is the Intuitive Wonderland.